Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Bikini and the Brain podcast. Did you guys miss us? Did you miss us? Because we sure missed you.
We did.
If you guys didn't notice, we took a week off from the podcast because something big was happening, right, Adam?
Yes.
You have a pretty good excuse, I'd say.
Yeah, it's definitely an excuse though. But the good, here's a good thing and the bad thing. The good thing is we're going to have good sound from now on because we're together and we have good sound and we're using
no more Zooms.
Yeah, we're using our new system, and then soon we even have a better sound, even better than this. But this is a good. Hopefully, you guys like it a little better. But it's because we're together, and that's why we're together all the time now. And the reason we're together is I am in Vegas now.
Yay! He officially moved to Vegas, so we're both lost vegans.
We're both vegans.
Lost vegans.
Is that both Las Vegans?
Well, it's just because when you say
vegan,
it's vegan would be vegan if you spell it how it's usually or pronounce how it usually is. So Las Vegan, but we're not vegans. We're Las Vegans.
Yeah, we're meat eaters. But did I ever tell you? You knew I was a vegan for a month.
You told me, and you checked your levels, and it didn't really help you in that period of time. But
no, not so much. But it was a fun experience. I got to learn about being a vegan. We should do that one day, like maybe a vegan podcast.
I could do it for a little bit. I mean, honestly, I do love vegan food. I do. I certainly wouldn't try it during like prepping though, because you never know how that would affect. So because I don't even eat that much meat. I'm not like a person that craves meat, like, oh my God, I gotta have a burger or something. I'm more of like a sweets kind of person if I want.
I liked it for like a couple of days because it was different. It was a different change of pace, but I missed the taste of like the texture of meat, which is a weird thing to say because who would think that you miss the texture of meat? And then the one thing I'll say is on a diet, vegan diets were like really like you felt full all the time. It's so much more volume of food than you would think. So that's the one thing I said, well, we should go into that one day.
Yes,
maybe you should try it for like a week after like the Olympia. You should try a vegan. You want to do it vegan for a week?
Oh yeah, let's do it. Like for real, I could totally do it.
It's fun.
Well, you know what I will say though, vegetarian would be a lot easier than vegan because protein bar.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we'll try one of those too.
They have no cow bars.
No, those are good.
They're pretty good.
They are good. I like those a lot. And I like, what is it called? Veggie Grill. That's so good.
You know, I
like tofu.
Let's do it. Let's do it for a week. All right. Well, that was a podcast that started off in a totally different direction.
Yes.
our randomness talk. So this podcast this week is going to be your guys' questions. And we got so many questions.
So many good questions. We asked you guys on Instagram, what would you like us to answer on our next podcast episode? And we have so many. We'll probably actually do at least a part 1, part 2.
I think so. Yeah.
There's so many good ones. You guys are smart. So.
Yeah. I think I have just alone in like one day, I have like 40 something questions. Oh wait, 8 times. Oh no, 8. I have 64 questions. I have 8 times 8. So yeah, quite a few. Yeah. So that's crazy. So we're just going to go back and forth.
Answer all those.
No, there's just way too many. Yes. But we'll go. We'll answer a few. Ashley will ask hers, and we'll kind of go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. You want to start with the first question?
You know what? Let me go ahead and I thought you were starting.
I can start if you'd like.
Yeah, if you're ready with yours,
sure.
I'm looking through. And actually, you know what? I'll just go ahead and start because I have a good one right here, and kind of go from here. So the first question I have is about vacuums, the pros and cons, and if they are necessary. So this is kind of a 2-part question because I have another person who asked a question about wearing waist trainers too, and if they're necessary. So we'll answer kind of both. And so here's the thing about like waist trainers and doing vacuums. So the vacuums, it's such a weird thing because it's hard to explain why they work. Now, one of the theories of doing like the vacuums, and if you guys have seen, I spend a lot of time with my athletes. It'll be like, okay, everyone does vacuums. If you really want to get your waist down, you wear a waist trainer. And it's kind of like a meathead science. It's one of these things. And you'll see like other, like, I don't even know. Some of them are coaches and some of them are just like nutrition scientists. And they're like, oh, waist trainers are BS and they don't work, whatever. And like, I've seen them post. But again, these are the people that are not prepping people at the higher levels. They're just, giving out advice on a weekly basis and maybe prepping people for like natural shows and whatnot. So there's a lot that goes, and that's always the thing. I'm always like trying to be like right in the middle because I know that being a pure scientist doesn't work. And I know that being a pure meathead doesn't work. Like you need to be open to all things. And I used to be really, really far on like the research science only type of thing. And as I've gotten like farther and farther into like working with better athletes and different coaches and like taking other coaches' things into consideration and looking at the coaches who are winning and what they're doing and talking to them. And a lot of times they're using meathead stuff too. And it's kind of, it doesn't make sense, but it works, you know? So the vacuum thing, the theory is that it's going to help with your TVA muscle, your transverse abdominis, get tighter and naturally hold you tighter, and naturally just hold tighter and get your waistline smaller. Does that actually work or not? I can't really tell you for certain, but what I can tell you is that when we're getting ready for a show and someone starts wearing a waist trainer, they wear a belt when they work out, they're doing vacuums, and then they're kind of monitoring their food to keep the foods that don't cause distension and whatnot. All of those things combined, and that's why you can't isolate it. All of those things combined provide crazy results. So one thing I can say is, like if you look at Phoebe Hagen, she's someone who's like a big time like waist trainer. She wears them all the time. She was in the same shape that she was last year, same conditioning that she was last year, but this year her waist was 2 inches smaller. Not like she lost 2 inches of body fat on her waistline. You can look at her pictures, same waistline, same conditioning. She did a really good video on it. And she attributes it to doing all those things and wearing the waist trainer, you know, a few hours a day type of thing. So does it work? I truly believe it does. And I used to think it was stupid. I really did. So yeah, I do think it works.
Awesome. Well, that was a good answer. Yeah. I mean, honestly, from someone like me too, something else to add on to that. In bikini, they don't really want projected abs, I guess you would describe it. They don't want to like be able to necessarily count every single ab. They don't want them to like pop out. They kind of want more of a smooth flat with some definition. So somebody like me, especially, I got to be careful whenever I train body parts. For example, if I'm doing back or something, I'm wearing a weight belt, and that's to kind of disengage my core a little bit. And the goal is just to not to work the abs, because I really haven't even trained the abs in forever, because for me it's kind of a weak point or a disadvantage, I would say, because my abs get a little bit too much sometimes. So I got to be careful. Guys say, hey, calm down their abs, okay? I'm glad that we're getting lean, but chill, okay? So, you know, I do those things, like especially with the weight belt, I always wear it even if I'm not training legs. So
yeah, so there you go. All right, so
next question comes from me.
yes.
So in the last podcast, we were kind of talking about how I think, in my opinion, it's probably better to wait if you're not hungry to eat, and to kind of get rid of that idea that you need to eat at a certain time. The only exception to this would be before or after workout. So we're not talking about before or after workout. I'm saying like on a day-to-day, like let's say you're not, it's like 4 p.m. You already worked out in the morning. You ate a few times, but you're due for another meal, and it's like, you're not hungry yet. We'll just chill, you know, it's okay. Like wait until you are hungry, and maybe you have a double meal. Why be miserable? Why force feed yourself? So this person asked, you mentioned waiting to eat till you get hungry. What if it takes 6 hours to get hungry? Well, then you eat in 6 hours. You know, again, asterisk right there, besides before and after workout, because that's like the important times.
Yeah, and that's the thing is we talked about it a little bit, but before and after workout, so there's a couple things. So there's a lot of ways to answer this question. It's more in depth. And I listened to our podcast and I was like, well, I could have answered that a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And so here's the thing. Food timing has a lot to do with food digestion too. So I was saying, so one of my things is it might matter post-workout still. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been disproven to not be more effective. It's been, and there's a couple of research that showed it to be a little bit better to do it post-workout. I'm still on the fence of whether that matters or not, but I'm really on the fence of if it matters or not, because of a couple of factors. So if you're working out in the morning and you haven't eaten anything and you work out fasted, which is perfectly fine, I think your post-workout matters a lot. I think it's a big time important. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're working out at 6 o'clock and you ate steak at 2 o'clock for lunch, or a big turkey meal, or a big dense chicken meal at 3 o'clock, whatever, I don't think your post-workout's really going to matter that much, because
it's still digesting. Yeah, and still getting in those nutrients, delivering them to your body, like
yeah, just like that. Yeah, just like that. That's the sound it makes. Yes. So like that's the thing. So it's a multi-part question, but yeah, as far as if you're talking about eating at 8 p.m. and you haven't eaten since 2 o'clock, don't worry about it. It's not going to be a big deal. If you work out at 4 o'clock and you ate, let's say, a big meal before you worked out, let's say you ate at 3 o'clock, you ate a real dense meal, your post-workout will probably matter less than if you were to work out, fasted in the morning, of course. So that's a kind of a situational type thing too. So if, let's say, you drank a protein shake at 12 o'clock, and then you're working out at 4 o'clock, yeah, that's probably done. It's out of your system. But if you ate a big steak meal, 8 ounces of steak at 12 o'clock, then yeah, that probably is still digesting, and you probably don't need it a post-workout as importantly. So, but as in terms of you eating, let's say, not taking in workouts into consideration at all, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. And if there's any benefit, it's going to weigh in the favor of eating less frequently than more frequently, but that's a very small benefit. It's nothing I would pay attention to.
Right.
And then, but here's the thing too. Again, these studies that are done, these research studies that are done, are not done on Ashley Cotwalser 3 weeks out from the Olympia, Phil Heath 3 weeks out from the Olympia, who weighs 250 pounds of muscle with, right now he's probably 5% body fat, 6% body fat. So like, take that into account, because when they're doing these studies, they're not doing it on regular people. So if you feel like, you can kind of figure your body out, if you feel like it is helping you to eat every 3-4 hours, then it's not going to hurt you to do that. Don't lose your mind over it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but just take that into account. There's some factors there that are not so black and white.
Good answer.
Yeah, there you go. I'm glad we actually got to that one again, because
you wanted to clarify.
Because I saw it and I was like, I heard it and I was like, I could have answered that like better, because it's situational, not so much. Yeah. So
totally.
Okay, so one of the questions, and this is a question I think that just needs to be out there, which is a cool one. And I talk about this stuff a little bit. People are so taboo about this stuff, but I never want to talk about these things because I'm in podcasts with Ashley too. But here's a question, and I think it needs to be answered. All right, so it says, can you win a bikini competition being natural? I've been asking, and 2 different trainers told me the same thing, that you can't.
Oh, because those trainers don't have any successful athletes. I bet you.
Yeah.
I bet you that's what it is. That's like the go-to excuse, right? For whenever their athletes don't do good, or for girls that maybe are a little salty that they're not at that level. That's always the excuse. It'll be the drugs. It'll be, or Photoshop, or this person only because they know this person and this person's a judge, or politics.
Yeah.
It's always an excuse, but that's a very common excuse, I would say.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee if you ask one of the top coaches, like ask Kimoto, ask Adam Bowe, they're going to tell you something totally different, because they have athletes that have found success.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, so, and I always say this the same way. I'm always super open about it. Ashley won 3 of her Olympias naturally, like not even knowing about anything, right? And so there's so many natural competitors, bikini pros out there, and some of it's genetic, some of it's a genetic factor, and some of it's just a work effort factor. So there's kind of 2 different ways of going about it. One, you can be a freak show, and just because you are genetically, you got to remember, the people who are competing who are pro at the high level, they are already genetic phenoms, right? They're already at that higher level of genetics. So yes, they can get away with things that other people maybe can't, right? But the other thing is, bikini is a great division, because I say it neutralizes that as a factor. Because bikini, you can only have so much muscle. So if I wanted to mess up Ashley quickly and like ruin her physique, I'll just give her a bunch of drugs, and she's going to be so big, she's going to pass the bikini class up, and they're going to be like, what'd you guys do? So you have a lot of factors. So one is time. And I always say you got to get to a certain threshold of muscle for a bikini. And once you're at that threshold, there's no reason to go past it. So therefore, and you can get to that threshold naturally. Like most women can get to that threshold naturally. Now it's going to take you some time. You got to remember, Ashley, she's been competing since 2011, right? So yeah, she's reached that point, and everyone should be reaching that point if they've been consistent for 9 years, to get.
And I was an athlete too, so that helped too.
Exactly. So there's
college, I went right from college track to bikini, so there really wasn't that much of a physique change.
Yeah, exactly. So like, there's a lot of factors involved, and I've had bikini pros who like they were natural and they thought they needed to take something. So maybe they would take something for a little while and they'd be like, no, my physique is changing way too much. I'm passing bikini class. And like, they just responded too good to it. Right. So there's a lot of times where not even by choice, but they have to be natural. And a lot of these upper tier girls will not be taking anything steroidal because they'll pass the class up and they need to maintain their lines. So you got to understand there's a limitation to it. Now, we're not talking bodybuilding here where they just got to get bigger, bigger, harder, harder, right? This is bikini. It's totally different. So that's the problem with a lot of like coaches they can't get someone there naturally because they don't know. They just crash their diet. They crash their cardio. They just stop responding. And so their answer is, oh, you stopped responding. I'm just going to do drugs, because drugs are going to be a good answer to that. If someone stops responding, you're always going to get someone to respond by just doing more drugs. Not the smartest way of doing it. Does it work? I mean, you can't argue the fact that those things work, or else they wouldn't be like banned from a lot of sports, right? Because so obviously they work. But so I always say you could take your time and do it naturally if that's the way you want to do it, and you could take PEDs and do it that way if you want to do it that way. I have no problem with either one. It's just up to you. When I was competing before, I did a natural organization for a little while at one point, but the competition there sucked. It was not challenging, wasn't hard at all. And then I went to NPC, and the NPC, the level was a lot higher. And so now I'm taking TRT. I still take TRT, which is basically testosterone replacement therapy, to get my levels to be at a little bit higher level, but still in that healthy range. And so technically I'm not natural now, but so I have no problem with however people want to do it. But you just got to understand, if people are telling you have to do something to be in bikini like that, that's not true. You can compete. A lot of natural bikini pros, you have tons of them. I mean, you even have, who is it? Aaron Stern won 2-figure Olympias naturally, right? So there's a lot of there's a lot of lifetime natural people. Justine Monroe's another one who's a lifetime natural. So there are a lot out there. Don't let people tell you otherwise. You do what you want to do. That's up to you. You want to get there faster? Yeah, PEDs work. Want to take your time and maybe it takes an extra year, 2 years, then yeah, you might have, that might be the case if you're natural. So there you go. So yeah, definitely you can outwork it in bikini. I would say in bikini specifically. In the other divisions, not so much for sure. So
good answer there. All right. So the next question comes from Shayla Wagner. What is it like backstage at the Olympia compared to any other show? Well, I think the biggest change is going to be Adam Bowe's probably not going to be backstage.
I was gonna say, that's a
they
question
probably
I
won't
can't
let
answer.
him.
Yeah.
They won't let. He won't be there fixing my hairs.
I want to know that.
He won't be there holding my resistance, man.
I know. I was gonna say that's a question I can't answer either. They don't let coaches back there, just media.
Yeah. So also the big change is it's a lot of media. So much media. You'll have different fitness magazines backstage. It'll be like a lot of important people, and a lot of, I guess, organizers, and just making sure everybody's there and in place and ready to go. As far as the vibe, I feel like a lot of girls are very talkative and they're dancing and stuff backstage. I'm not, and I always say this, I feel like some girls might think I'm an absolute bitch just because I don't talk. Not because I don't want to, or I'm not friendly, or I don't like them. Not because of that reason. It's just because I get so in the zone where I'm just in my head going over, okay, I gotta do this, my routine, and I kind of get nervous to the point where I clam up a little bit. So I'm usually the one in the corner, just staring at the wall or something. But when Adam's there, it's a lot better because I can talk to somebody, you know what I mean? But as far as the other girls, they're usually a lot more talkative than I am. I'm just kind of in the zone and maybe listening to music and just thinking about what's about to happen in the next 15 minutes. So yeah, a lot to think about, especially in the Olympia. Yeah,
people do say that comment to Ashley, because they expect her to, because on her Instagram and YouTube, she's super extroverted, and me and her are talking, we're always laughing, whatever. They just expect her to always be like that, but yeah, she's a little quiet. She's a little quiet.
I'm very, very quiet. I am.
So yeah, she's just in the zone, guys. That's all it is. But I will get it. She's she doesn't like me, or she doesn't. Whatever. I'm no, she's competing. Give her a break. So funny. Okay, so here's kind of a multi-layered question, but maybe you could help with this one too. So tips for first-time competitors, and I think that we've kind of gone into this, and even in one of the podcasts before, I think, right? Mm-hmm. First-time competitor.
That's funny because look what question I
have. No way. Look at that. Same thing.
Almost, yeah. Mine's a little more complex, but yeah.
Yeah. You know what? Let's ask yours. Let's ask your question, because yours is going to be good for it too.
More specific? Okay. Yeah. So my question specifically asks, for a first-time competitor, what are things that are considered good genetics for the bikini division? So there are things that you really can't change, unfortunately. There's things you can work on, but there's things such as width of your hips, width of your shoulders, rib cage width, height, shoe size. Those things you can't change. Shoe size honestly doesn't really matter that much in bikini. But I will say, genetically speaking, you are blessed in bikini if you have wider shoulders, wider weight or wider hips, smaller waist.
Yeah.
So I think that also goes for any other division too, is that they want a little small waist, but in bikini especially, a small waist is ideal. I mean, look at Issa, she's the smallest little waist.
Yeah.
But that's, I would say, good genetics for bikini.
Yeah, I think that's you pretty much nailed it. So your joint structure matters. So here's the thing with bikini.
Oh, we gotta go over the insertions too.
Yeah, your joint structure matters, your height matters, how your insertions matter. Like, so when you're talking about like the upper tiers, like there's a lot of factors. But yeah, so the main thing that you're looking for is you want to have, we call it clavicular base. Like if you're trying to put together a Miss Olympia type of thing, you want to have a wider clavicular base. You want to have a matching joint structure from your upper to your lower body in terms of your balance of your joint structures. You want to have a good shoulder base. You want to have a small waistline, generally higher lats, like higher lat insertion, so your waistline is smaller. You want to have those ratios that we try to hit. So now these are, I'll give you some basic ratios, but these are not in stone by any means. They vary quite a bit based on the joint structure and the bone structure of someone. But typically in a bikini, like a bikini pro, is going to have a waistline in that 22 range, and at about a 22 range, I've seen as low as 19. And that's
at the lowest, not necessarily the belly button, but the smallest part of the waist, just to clarify.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Ashley will get in the 21s when she's like fully stage ready.
And after a poop.
After a poop. And then generally the hips will be somewhere in that like 12 range, bigger than the smallest part of the waistline. So 11 to 13 or so inches above the waistline, I've found to be very common at the pro level. And then the shoulders will typically be in that like 14 to 15 range above the waistline. It's kind of like the ratios that I've been finding common with a lot of bikini pros. Luckily, I'll have a lot of, that's the cool thing is when bikini pros come into town, I'm always like, yeah, come down to the prep center and we'll do a scan, we'll do this. And I'm really, I love when they come in, but I'm stealing their data too. So like I have a lot of pros that aren't even on the team, and I'll kind of look at their scans, their 3D scans, and I'm trying to come up with like the perfect ratio balance, but what's common between all these top level athletes. So I have some for figure, I have some for bodybuilding, I have some for classic, I have some of the best have came in and scanned. So I have all this data I'm collecting. So for bikini, that seems to be a pretty typical thing. The quad tends to be right around 20 inches to 19 inches in the middle of the quad. At the lower part of the quad above the knee tends to be around like 15 inches or so. So that's kind of like the ratios that when you're looking at making someone a bikini like rock star, trying to line up their ratios with other top pros and like being like, hey, this is where your fall off, it becomes really easy to do the kind of the math on that. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of information. That's some precision right there.
Right. And just because you don't have some of the things he mentioned doesn't mean you can't be successful. You kind of got to work with what you got, because everything he explained, there are some things that I don't even have that you explained, like my clavicle isn't wide. So it's like one of those things I have to work on. I have longer insertions in my lats, which kind of...
You actually have 3 things in there that we talked about that wouldn't be there.
I'm just so flawed.
But
I also have good qualities too.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think we should talk a little bit about muscle insertions too, since we previously mentioned it. Maybe somebody doesn't know what a muscle insertion is, but I think the best example, so you can visualize what a muscle insertion is look at somebody's calves, right? You might notice that on some people's calves, they're super, super high up. They're like a little like tennis ball just put right underneath their knee, right? And then some people, they have very long calves to almost where it blends in with the ankle, like a kinkle almost, very, very long calves. Yeah. That's an example of a high muscle insertion and a low muscle insertion. And genetically speaking, you can't really change where that is placed. So although you can train to make your calves bigger, you certainly can do that. That's not going to move them up or move them down. That's just one example, but that goes for like every body part. That goes with your delts, that goes with your hamstrings, your glutes. And for me, I have short muscle insertions on my glutes, which is an advantage and a disadvantage. So having shorter muscle insertions in my glute hamstring tie-in means that in the back pose, my glutes will look more, I guess, small, high up, You know what I mean? So they're not like super long. So to get a tie-in to show might be a little harder. But from my profile, since I have the shorter muscle insertions, I do have more projection from the side, because my glutes are, I guess, short tie-in
Yeah.
or high tie-in, I guess you would say.
No, for sure. You got that perfectly right. And then the cool thing too is about, so here's the, I would say the disadvantages and advantages in glutes on that part. So if you have a long insertion on your glute, you don't need a huge profile to show the tie-in. I would say it's easier to show the tie-in with someone who doesn't have a big projection on their
From the
glute.
back.
Yeah. But what
right?
yeah, from the back. But what I will say is that the people who have shorter glute tie-ins, or shorter glutes, I guess I should say,
Like me.
tend to have an easier time filling out the outer edge of the glute. And people with the longer glutes tend to have a harder time. And it's like it almost starts like at a lower point, their glute like filling out at the top. And they have to really, really work to get that upper part out. So there's a disadvantage and advantage to all of it.
Just think of it being like crunched up versus like stretched out.
Yeah.
So that's a short is crunched up, and stretched out is a longer insertion. And again, that goes for every muscle group basically. So, you know, in my shoulders, it's longer. So I can't really get a good cap so easily. Some people get a really nice cap super easily, and it's just because it's shorter. My lats are a little bit longer, which means they're not going to be as high up and prominent. But yeah, you know, in the legs, they tend to have like shorter insertions. So
yeah, it's a crazy thing to like really break someone down genetically.
it's
but
fascinating.
Yeah,
Though,
if you were to,
isn't it?
there's no one, and just so you don't get discouraged too, there's no one out there who has everything. No one has everything. Like if you look at everyone, like really, even Issa, like looking at her, she's got a great, Issa and Janet have really good clavicular bases. Their shoulders are really set wide, and so they can have not. Here's the cool thing about like someone who has that clavicular base is they don't have to get crazy big shoulders, which you don't want in bikini anyway, to have, because they already have the width. So they don't need crazy big shoulders to look the part of that bikini. So you kind of do it based on the person. So for someone who has got a smaller like clavicular base, so their clavicle isn't as wide, you're gonna have to get them bigger. So, but at what point do they become figure because they're too big, right? So that's the thing. So you work with what you got, and you kind of manipulate bodies based on genetic structures, and it's a really cool game. And that's for me, like I would say growing up, I've always been into fitness, but I've also always really been into art. I even took like photography classes and art classes and stuff because I just love art so much. So that's why I think I love this stuff so much, because you can like really put someone like as like clay and like mold and be like, you need to do this, you need to do this. And so I kind of like mixing the art of it and also like the math of it too, and trying to come up with these ratios. So for me, I don't know, I just really like the art part of it, like that, like creating beauty, you know? I think it's really cool.
I always thought it was very interesting to see like what genetic body types do the best for certain sports. You know, I was so like, I used to really look into that stuff too. So I think that's super fascinating. If you look at like the Olympics, different body types tend to do better in different sports. Really short gymnasts with, you know, a lot of spring, you know, versus like, let's say a high jumper that's super tall and lanky. It's so fascinating.
Yeah, I think it's really cool, the things that we do. You know, it keeps it interesting. If it was the same thing over and over again, I'd be sick of it by now. But I mean, 20 years in, I'm not sick of it. So I don't think I will get sick of it. You know, especially with how much of it I do. I still haven't gotten sick of it. I think it's just the art of it. It's just always so challenging and different from everyone. So yeah, whatever you got, just work with what you got. Try to make it the best balance that you can. I know we went a lot into genetics in that first time, but what I will say on First Time Competitor, do your research, watch shows, watch as many shows as you can. Never try to be like someone. Find what works for you. Ashley brings in a more athletic, sharper look. You have other girls that bring in a softer look. You have other girls. So find what works for you. Don't try to be someone, because they're already there. They exist. So just you're good enough being yourself.
Yes,
so
and nobody's body is the same anyway.
Exactly. So find what works for you. There's a lot of really good coaches out there that can do these breakdowns for you. You know, I get a lot of like physique assessments. I don't have time for any more of them, unfortunately, to do like more physique assessments. Like, but if you're ever in Vegas now, within the next few weeks, we're going to start doing our posing classes. You can come down. Happy to do a posing class with you when you come to the class and kind of give you a little bit some advice there too. But yeah, so just talk to coaches, talk to someone who knows what they're talking about, ask them what you should work on, and yeah, kind of go from there. Okay, so here we go. And so one of the cool questions was, and I think that this one's a multi-layered question too. I guess all these are really, because nothing's super easy, right?
Not for Adam.
So here's a question. How do you load day before and day of show? What do you eat? And so this is the other, someone else in another question asked me, what are the biggest mistakes you make during peak week? And I think both of those questions are kind of the same. So for a couple of things. One, if someone's really worried about loading the day of the show, one, you're probably just gonna make your stomach wider anyway. Like if you're loading the day of the show, and I hear about this all the time, especially like these old school bodybuilders, they'll be like, oh, I went out and had a stack of pancakes and eggs and a steak in the morning, and then I had a bunch of syrup, and then it's gonna fill me out. And I'm like, you're on stage in 3 hours. You're gonna be digesting that food in the next 8 hours. You had a steak. Like it doesn't.
It's just gonna make you bloated, distended, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, a stack of pancakes, like that much volume of food is going to sit in your stomach. It doesn't, like, I don't understand why people don't understand digestion at this stage still. I mean, we're so far past like in nutrition science where we know how long things take to digest. So the day of the show, I try to keep it minimal for most people. I want to be ready the day of the show. Now, are there those freaks who burn through carbs and maybe if they're competing in 6 hours, it'll make a difference? I think, yeah, you can do that, but you should be ready going into the day of the show. The day of the show, it should just be like, worry about your hair, your makeup, guys, put your trunks on, you get your hair down too, and just go on stage. Like that really, it shouldn't be all these things necessary. Like you should be so ready that you shouldn't be falling apart in 6 hours. And here's the thing, guys, like people are like, oh, I went flat. It was like 5 hours. I'm like, dude, if you went flat in 5 hours, like you weren't ready. Like your body just doesn't change that fast. It's just like people are like they act like they're doing a marathon. I'm like, oh, you went flat in 3 hours before the show when you were laying in bed the whole time and laying backstage. Your body's that inefficient where it burned through 1,000 carbs laying down. Like it doesn't make any sense. You weren't ready going into it. You weren't loaded before you were into it. The only time that happens where someone like goes flat like crazy, like the day of the show, is when they're playing around with diuretics and they weren't drinking enough water. And then that does matter. So I will say this, make sure your electrolytes are on point. Make sure your water's on point. Don't mess with your sodium too much. There are some times where it makes sense to cut and watch the sodium intake. But you're starting to play with fire because you're starting to do too many things. I'm not opposed to people like reducing their sodium like the day before the show and whatnot. So those are the kind of the factors that do make a big difference. But on Friday, if the show's on Saturday, you should be loaded, and Friday should be your target day to be on point to like be extra loaded. I generally would like to load someone earlier in the week because it's very predictable at the end of the week. And as soon as you get out of that mindset of things are going to fall apart, like if I don't have this meal within an hour, if I don't have a rice cake 15 minutes before I go on stage with honey, then I'm not going to miss my fullness. That rice cake you eat 15 minutes before you go on stage with honey is not going to be in your system before you're off stage. Sorry, it doesn't work that fast. You don't want to be that efficient. Like if you burn through food that quickly, we'd probably all be dead. Like, can you imagine? Like you just burn through 1,000 carbs you
wouldn't even make it through the night.
Yeah, it's crazy. Everyone had to wake up every day at 4 hours of sleeping, so it's crazy. So just like we talked about earlier, that it doesn't matter that much in terms of like the frequency of when you eat, it's the same rule applies. All of a sudden it doesn't become important like the day of the show that you're just going to burn through all these carbs. It doesn't make sense. So what I will say is this, the day of the week of the show, I keep it super clean. I avoid foods that can cause distension, that can cause maybe water retention, that can cause any, adverse effects like, gastrointestinally. So like maybe there's things like sometimes like eggs cause people problems. So I keep it super, super clean the week of the show, like way overboard clean the week of the show, like way too much. And so, and then we cut the sweeteners and all these things. And the carbs we will eat will be clean carbs, and generally the smaller volume carbs if we can. Things like, as a carb reload, like white rice, coconut oils, almond butters, things like that. Cream of rice is really good carb because it's very low volume. And we're trying to keep that waistline super, super tight. Even the vegetable selections are different the week of the show because I don't want to have crazy dense, like, someone eating a pound of broccoli like every day going to the show because it's so much volume. And we're trying to do something that doesn't make sense, which is create the smallest, craziest waistline with as much muscle as we can. And then the other thing I will say, and I know I'm taking over here, sorry. The other thing I will say is don't chase fullness. Everyone chases fullness, And it's like, if you have enough muscle, you don't need to chase fullness, and you should have enough muscle to not have to worry about chasing fullness. Because what happens is when you chase, now I want you to be full. I would say, you want to be a good amount full, but you never want to be 100% full, because if you're chasing 100%, most likely you're going to pay for it with conditioning. And so don't be that person like, I just need to be fuller. I just need to be fuller. Conditioning always wins. Not sometimes wins. Conditioning always wins. It never doesn't win. You'll have some girls who just do better when they're softer, but we're not talking about fullness versus conditioning. We're just talking they do better when they're softer. So the whole fullness thing and like chasing that, people mess themselves up the most there, because they spill over, they're holding water, they looked better on Wednesday, they did on Saturday because they're chasing too much fullness, they did too much at the end. So just keep it easy, don't do too much, do it day by day, check in with your coach probably 3-4 times that week. And I don't want to take any tips you got on this?
Oh, I will say, just let's even specify even clear on the day of the show. I'll give you a little example of how I do my foods. As we've stated, in bikini especially, you got to have the smallest little itty bitty waist possible. So we don't want anything in there that's going to like take a long time to digest. We want that flat, small stomach. So honestly, day of show, depending on the time, what time I go on, I might go on like fasted with like coffee or something like that. Or if I'm like, a little hungry, sometimes I am a little hungry in the morning, I'll have like some rice cake with coconut oil. And we keep it very minimal, because at this point, chicken and broccoli, chicken asparagus, that's not going to do me any good right now if I'm going on stage in 2 hours. So we want to keep the food minimal and easy to digest. So it's not just sitting in my stomach, just chilling and, pushing out my stomach. So I will say that as well. And, after prejudging, I still keep the foods minimal. And then, after the show, that's when I can make up for the calories that I didn't eat that day. But with that being said, just be cautious if you're feeling like, lightheaded or you get the low blood sugar. I don't experience that. I could go pretty long time without having to eat. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point to put out there too. And then the other thing too, I will say is, when you do your show, and you got to remember, we're shooting for the flattest stomach, the close to full, 100% full, but when we're doing 90% full or so, we're not chasing 100% though. We're like, once you're full enough, we're like, okay, that's it. We're not going to push it any farther, because we're going to lose conditioning at that point, and maybe blow out your waistline. Just remember, in 2 days, when you're like, oh, I'm so much fuller. Yeah, we know you're going to be fuller. Like, it's not, we didn't shoot for you to be 100% full. So like when you, and this happens to every coach out there who does it this way, because most coaches who are doing it this way are like pretty successful, because they're not chasing 100% fullness, because they figured out, hey, if I keep chasing fullness, I'm spilling people over, they're losing their conditioning. And then once they stop doing that, they start winning at a higher rate. And then their athletes at a higher rate start saying, oh, I was fuller, I was fuller like 2 days later. Yeah, of course you're fuller 2 days later. You ate a whole bunch of crap, and now but your waistline isn't as tight. And they're like, I know, but I'm way fuller. I'm all vascular in who cares? You don't get judged off vascularity. Like, so don't make your coaches, so don't make your coaches crazy. I know you're going to be fuller in 2 days after the show. But you're going to be softer. Your waistline's going to be wider. And that's not what wins shows, So it's the balance between the two, and you're going to have to sacrifice. There's never juice without a squeeze,
Oh, I like that. That should be on a shirt or something. So the next question comes from Lexi Thorpe, and I'm going to say this is going to be maybe an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to give it. So she asks, your thoughts on bringing a master's division to Olympia? I say, no, absolutely not. Absolutely not, for 2 reasons. 2 reasons. One, you're not giving masters, and for those of you who are only listening in, these are quotations, masters, you're not giving people over 35 like credit.
Yeah.
Okay. I always thought it was ridiculous that masters is 35 and over. I'm like, dude, that's like a bodybuilder's not even hit their peak, like not even their prime. I'm like, how is that even? So that's for one thing. Like, if they will have masters, make it over like 50 or something.
That would be,
you know what I mean?
Sense, yeah.
But I'm just like, dude, there's the girls like 40 something that's won pro shows. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure they're very capable of qualifying for the Olympia. And the second reason why I don't think we should bring that division to Olympia is, okay, there's already in bikini, So many. Okay.
Like
44 competitors
44,
already.
yeah.
All right. We don't need another one of those as well. Okay. 44 competitors, which is probably, it's definitely double most divisions, I would say, especially this year, which is so funny because I'll always go back and laugh at this, how all those girls were complaining that I was competing and still in the spots and nobody could get in Olympia. 44, that's too much.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That is way, way, way too much. In the Arnold Classic, there's like 25. I think we should keep it at like 20, 25, because it is the most prestigious show of the year. So of course we don't expect everyone to qualify for it.
Yeah.
That's why it is the Olympia. And I think by adding more and more competitors to that roster kind of dilutes it a little bit. It dilutes the legacy, the prestigiousness. So that's my unpopular opinion. I don't know about you, Adam, but that's my thoughts. I think, just saying that.
Yeah, no, I think I would actually be on the same page with you as I think that, so they used to have a Masters Olympia. So they used to have that. The problem is like every bodybuilder is a Masters based on the definition of 35 and older.
Top 10,
they're all
Mr. Olympia. I bet you they're technically considered Masters. Well, who came up with that age? I'm so confused. Yeah. Who came up with 35? That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty young.
Like nobody looks at somebody that's 35 and be like, oh my gosh, you're a Masters. Yeah. You know what I mean? Oh my goodness.
You, Angelica, Janet, I think Camille, like are all over 30, right? Mm-hmm. And Angelica, out of all that, I think Angelica is probably the oldest. I think she's 35 or 36 already. So like she would have won an Olympia, I think, when she was 34. So like, I mean, you're the best in the world, but you're already like, it doesn't make any sense. Like she's just gonna win every Masters show and the Olympia. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense because everyone peaks at different times. And the bikini career is a lot longer than people think. Like you got to your 40 before you really, if you take care of yourself, like, especially these days, like if you take care of yourself, like you got till 40 before anything starts showing up on you. You know, and if that wasn't the case, then you wouldn't have like 5 of the top 10 in the world over 30. Because it doesn't really make sense at that age. I see having like a separate show, not in the same show, having a separate Masters show, but it's got to be way older. Because I mean, Dexter Jackson's 50 years old and he's still top 10 in the Olympia.
More than that, isn't he?
53 or something, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's like,
I mean, shoot.
Sean Roden won his Olympia when he was 44, I think it was. I mean, it's like Breon, he's over 40. I think he's like, I don't know, I think he's 43 or something. So like, I know he won his first Olympia, he was like 40. So like, it just doesn't make sense that a 35 Masters. So I agree, it's just the age that's wrong. I think if they did, I want to say
50.
I want to say 50, but then Dexter's over 50. So and he just win everyone. He did win everyone.
So I think that just not.
Yeah, it's just hard. Yeah, it's just hard to do because Dexter Jackson, the year he won the Olympia, he also won the Masters Olympia. But you know what I mean? He shouldn't even be doing the Masters Olympia. Like, it doesn't make sense. So like it's just the age doesn't make sense. Age isn't as big as a factor. I've seen, there's a girl named Gidget or Gigi, I forget. Gidget, I think it's Gidget, from Colorado, and she placed second at the bikini in Chicago. In Chicago this year, obviously shows they're not the same, like every show's different this year, but Chicago is a very prestigious show. She got second in Chicago at 48 years old against a bunch of 20-year-olds, and there's like 30 girls in the class. So it's like, it doesn't matter that much if you take care of yourself. So like, it just doesn't make sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I know why like local shows do it. It's definitely, to get in more numbers and some more people can, add on to the division, which is more profitable for the promoters, but it does not make an ounce of sense to have it at the Olympia. Yeah. It's just ridiculous to me. So
yeah. So you're saying no for a good reason. Yes, that everyone's that age isn't as big as a factor until maybe you're over 50. Yeah. But even then, like I have a girl that just went pro, Holly Larson. She's one of my athletes. She just went pro. And she was beating up girls at 50 in the 20-year-old division. All the time. Yeah, so it just doesn't make sense. Yeah,
it truly does not.
Yeah, I had a girl get a pro card last year in, I forget what country, that might have been Portugal or something. And she was 40, I want to say 44. And she had to beat all the other girls in the overall to get it. So like, it's not as big of a factor as people think, I think. Yeah. So. Okay, so let's go into, here's another cool, it's a quick question. Is it okay to work on PRs during prep? Yeah, you can work on those, but honestly, you're not gonna be lifting, like you're probably not gonna be reaching PRs when you're in prep, unless it's like cardio based. So maybe PRs of like how good your abs look, but if you're trying to hit PRs and hit your heaviest weight while doing a squat or whatever during extreme caloric deficits and low body fat percentages, you're probably not going to do it. It's just, you can, I don't think it's very smart.
Right.
You're more susceptible to injury because you're more beat up at that point. You're doing a lot to your body at that point. So I would say not to, but there's nothing wrong with it. But I just don't think you're going to do very good at it.
Right. And even from an endurance standpoint, I will give you my little take on it. I remember for a few Olympias back, I used to do a 5K race, like for the last 6 weeks heading up into Olympia. And every week I got leaner and leaner, and I would get that practice more and more because I was, accumulating all these races. And I will say every single week, the time was worse and worse and worse the closer I got to a show.
Makes sense.
Probably just because I was running on E, but that's just like an example too, even for an endurance standpoint. So
yeah. So I guess maybe your PR could be like your resting heart rate, because that'll go down.
Yes,
So
exactly. So the next question: to target a weak muscle group, do you increase weights, reps, or both? I have weak shoulders. Girl, I feel you. My shoulders, they're also my weak point, okay? But I've definitely improved a lot this year because we were training them a lot harder, and we focused most of the attention on the upper body. In fact, I just now started doing legs yesterday, and I'm sore. And I took like how many?
3 months.
Well, I did here and there. I would do a few before a show, but basically,
before a show, we always do it about 2-3 weeks before a show.
Before a show, like 2 weeks before a show, I'll start training the lower body again. And that's because I want to focus all my time, attention, and energy to these little baby shoulders. And, just to kind of even out a little bit to make the upper body match the lower body. The lower body can put on muscle a lot easier than the upper body for me. So we just got to dedicate all the time to the things that need it most. So in that case, I would say before you even worry about reps and weights and stuff, make sure you're challenging yourself, of course, but don't be afraid to add in additional days per week focused on that body part, and maybe eliminating days that you don't need to work on that body part. Like if your legs, just like me, they're already there, they're good to go, they're, muscular, they're not going to go anywhere, so you can keep an eye on them. They're probably not going to go anywhere. So just keep pushing the things that need the most work and give your attention to those body parts.
Yeah, there you go. That's a good way of putting it. Now, what's cool is that was actually the perfect segue into my question, which I'm really happy that you answered that question, because my question is, how long should you be in a surplus during off season if you need to build the glutes? And so this is what's really cool is Ashley kind of just answered that. You guys didn't see that she answered that, but she did. So if you guys have listened to the podcast before, I always am huge on maintaining your conditioning all year long. Okay, you got to remember, if you're doing this, here's the thing. If you're doing this for real, like you're absolutely trying to be the best and you're trying to like one day be a pro or one day be Miss Olympia or whatever, you have to treat it like you're doing a pro sport, just like any pro sport. You don't see like LeBron James coming back to practice after taking a couple months off from the NBA and being up 30 pounds, right? This is not something that happens. So and that's why he's one of the best in the world, so the same thing applies to our sport. And I think people always kind of don't understand that this is a sport just like that. And if you see people who are excelling, they're always maintaining their conditioning. Like find a picture of Issa where she put on 25 pounds post-show. Find a picture of Angelica where she put on 25, 30 pounds post-show. They might get a little bit softer, yeah, of course, but we're not talking transformations into every single contest. It's not how it works. At this level, you need to be maintaining your conditioning and then being within striking distance and then maybe losing 10 pounds going into a show, that type of thing. So a lot of the coaches that are at that higher level do that. They always say, hey, maintain the conditioning. So that being said, take a look at Ashley. Everyone this year was like, dang, Ashley's shoulders have really came through. Ashley's shoulders have gotten so much better.
Come a long way.
Yeah, but you got to remember, guys, she's been in a caloric deficit at pretty much this whole time because she's been doing shows. She's done 4 shows this year. She'll do, she did how many last year did you do? Like
4
or 5. So and they weren't like the same month. They were spread out. So she was constantly prepping for shows, but still making improvements. So that tells you don't need to be in this crazy caloric surplus and gaining unnecessary body fat just to gain some muscle. And one of the things I like to break down for people is you don't gain that much muscle anyway, and people overestimate. So you'll have a 120-pound bikini girl and she'll be like, I want to be in a caloric surplus to grow my glutes. And then she'll be like, I need to gain a pound a week. And I'm like, no, you don't gain that much muscle. Like you're small person, you know, if you're doing bikini, you're relatively small. And then 2, you don't gain that much muscle. Even if you were big, you don't gain a pound of muscle a week. That's crazy. That's all going to be fat. Like you're going to gain very little muscle within that pound. So what you want to do is maximize your lean gaining. And you do that by working hard and by eating good, but you don't need extra crazy calories. You know, I rarely put someone in a caloric surplus. I rarely do. Like I'll put them at maintenance calories where they're making micro progressions, but I'm not trying to hit a pound a week every week or anything like that, because most of that weight's going to be fat. And then now we have to lose that fat. And now we have to diet harder than we had to diet from before. And then we lose muscle because we're dieting harder. So you just lose, even if you gained a little bit more muscle by doing that, now you have to lose it because you're losing body fat at a more extreme level. So just to give you some rough numbers, they basically think that you can gain about 10 grams or synthesize about 10 grams of amino acids a day. Okay, so 10 grams of amino acids into skeletal muscle. Okay, so actual muscle built is somewhere in that like 5 to 10 grams a day if you're doing everything right. Okay, so gram wise, it takes 450 grams for 1 pound. So that means if you're killing it and you're doing 10 grams a day of building skeletal muscle, it takes you 45 days to actually build 1 pound. But you have bikini athletes who weigh 100 pounds trying to gain 1 to 1.5 pounds a week. Tell me how that makes any sense, right?
How many weeks are in a year?
Yeah, exactly.
You put on like what, 50 pounds of muscle?
Oh, I'll see a girl who's clearly over her body fat percentage where she should be for someone who says they're a competitor. Like they'll be at like 25%, 28%. They're like, oh yeah, I'm a competitor. I'm like, you're double the body fat percentage you should be when you're on stage. How are you a competitor, right? And then they'll be like, but I'm bulking right now. And I'm like, you're going to go bigger than this? Like, you know how hard your prep's going to be? And then they don't show up in shape the day of the show. And then they lose all the new gains they had because they had to diet so hard. They're making it so hard on themselves because they're in this crazy caloric surplus. So I say be conservative with that stage, because that way it's going to make your prep easier. You know, you don't need to be in a caloric deficit the whole time, but maintenance calories are close to it. There's no reason you can't make maximum gains or close to maximum gains in that caloric, like that maintenance calories. Now, will you make a little bit more gains in a surplus? Probably a little bit, but not enough to justify the gaining of body fat. So there you go. There's my spiel on it. Stay lean and stay happy. And also, you know, honestly, the other thing too is like you do this as a sport, but you also do this to look good. Let's face it. None of us are not like, we're all vain, right? We're all like doing it for aesthetics and looks and like feeling good about ourselves. Like it's all, there is a vanity piece to this, right? So like, I want to look good all year. You know, especially if you're not like if you're, you know, Phil Heath and you look good only the day of the show, the Olympia, that makes sense. He gets a $500,000 paycheck basically, right? The day of the show. Do whatever you got to do to get that paycheck, right? But if you're Nancy from down the street who likes to lift weights and do a competition twice a year, like why is Nancy not happy in her body 9 months out of the year because she's bulking, right? Like Nancy, lean out, stay lean, be happy.
Get together, Nancy.
Yeah, rock your bikini all the time. Don't do this unnecessary bulking. And let's not lie to each other and say I'm bulking just because you want to eat like shit for 6 months.
Oh yeah,
like let's just
to eat whatever,
yeah,
right?
Well, I'm bulking, so every week I have a full pizza to myself or whatever. Like you're just, let's just call that what it is, okay? You're being a little piggy and that's okay. Just call it what it is. so there's some real talk from you, from Coach Adam.
There you go.
So yeah, I'm feeling feisty right now.
Yeah, me too. After that one question got me fired up. So the next question comes from Stronger Nurse. And I love this question. And it applies to both of us. She asks, what do you do to stay happy? You have so much great energy. And I feel like that goes for both of us. In fact, I always say this, Adam is literally the happiest person I know. Like, look at him, you always smiling. I've never seen him not smile. I mean, some days if he's tired, he might be a little quiet, but you're always happy. So we're just staying happy over here. And I know coming from my perspective and how I look at it is I stay happy because I'm literally living the dream and I went farther than I ever thought possible. This sport has given me so much. And hey, I won 22 pro shows. I won 3 Olympian competitions. And I'll tell you, I promised myself to never get like mad or salty if I don't place well, because at the end of the day, how can I be mad? I've done something that I thought was unachievable and that very few people would ever get to experience. So regardless what happens from here on out, I'm happy and I got
Yeah.
to stay happy. This is making me like the best version of myself possible. And I never would have imagined my life to be this way, but I wouldn't have it any other
Yeah.
way, you know?
Yeah.
We're living kind of cool lives here.
Yeah, I would
We're
say
very
so.
lucky.
I would
You got to be grateful. I'm very grateful.
Me too. Yeah, I'm very grateful. And I think that, it's easy for us to be like sitting in the seat and being like, this is how, you be happy because we have pretty much everything we want, that type of thing. And so, you got to understand too, is that I think the main happiness thing, and for me is too, I'm like, and this is what's funny is like, I thought at this point I'd be getting stressed out with everything going on, but I'm not. I'm like, it's not only not stressed at all, which is funny because there's so much going on right now behind the scenes. Like if you guys knew. So just to give you an example, I sold a piece of land, I sold my house, I sold my gym. I'm moving the gym to my new gym. I'm remodeling my gym. I bought a new house, moved everything in, moved all my cars, getting ready for the Olympia. Olympia got moved on me, USA's got moved on me. Everything's not lining up with terms of like where things are supposed to be, but like you can't let those, like, it's just life. That's just what it is. Like everyone else be losing their mind. But I'm like, no, it's just how it'll be fine. We'll work it out.
Gotta go
Like,
with the flow.
just understand like things are gonna happen. Nothing's ever gonna go perfectly, and just go with it. And usually it ends up working out for the best. So I'm not stressed about that. And I think one of those things is like managing your stress and just taking life not so seriously, And because of that, like I don't let those things affect me. I'm like, whatever, it'll get figured out. Like I'm not worried about it, it'll get figured out. But like I'm still not taking every day. I still am taking advantage of every day. I'm never taking a day for granted, Like I think it's really cool to get to do what I want to do. But I think the important thing is when you're saying like, what do you do to be so happy? You got to look at, I think you got to really got to do, people got to look at their life and decide, okay, if you're doing right now what you want to be doing the rest of your life, then great, you've won. You kicked ass at life. Good for you, right? But if not, and you see yourself, if you say to yourself, if I got to do this job for 5 more years, I'm going to go crazy. Like I'm going to hate my life. Then you need to take action and do something about that while you can, because a lot of our listeners, at least, are in that younger age where they can take action in their life and do something to change it dramatically because they don't have those crazy responsibilities. So once you start getting more responsibilities, it becomes pretty hard to like make these dramatic changes. So, at a younger age, my family, they offered me my family's grocery store to manage. And they said, if I turn 18, that I can manage the family's grocery store, I'll get a 6-figure income. And I'll finally and for me, I was like, okay, I didn't have money growing up. My dad's side did, my mom's side did, and I live with my mom. And so for me, I was like, that was a really good solution to a quick solution to a problem, but I knew I wasn't going to be happy doing that. So I ended up working in a nutrition store and tracing the training route, right? But I knew that was enough money for me to be happy too, right? But I was still chasing that dream. So, things turned into, craziness. I never expected all this to happen. But the thing is, I did what made me happy on a daily basis. And I think that everyone needs to look at their life and really assess it and work towards the future you being as happy as you can be. And I think we both did that, when we were younger, as we like said, okay, I'm going to pursue this bikini thing, take it as far as I can. I'm going to go as hard as I can. I'm going to be dedicated as I can. I'm going to live every day as if that goal is like chasing me, right? I'm chasing that goal. And then I did the same thing. I want to be the best coach in the world. I always say that. I want to be the best coach in the world. I want to be the best coach in the world. And for years and years, that's all I wanted to do. And I chased that, not the money. And with that, then success came. And I'm still chasing that. So I'm trying to be the best, but now I'm also trying to be the happiest. I think I'm not going to exchange like dollars for happiness anymore. Before I would have. But now I'm just like, whatever happiness is, I'm going to do that. So I think that people really need to look at that as their like, and really take a second and look back at, okay, am I doing what's going to make me happy in 10 years? Am I taking action every day that's going to make me the happiest? Am I appreciating every day that I have? And I think contest prep it's silly that I apply contest prep to that, like the philosophy of contest prep to that, to being the happiest. But I think that it makes people so much better because of that. I think that if you're doing a contest and you're showing yourself that you can be dedicated to a goal and you can pretty much kill yourself for 16 weeks to get ready for a show. I mean, you're eating less and you're doing more, you're spending more energy. You're basically trying to, if you did that forever, you would die. You know, if you ate less than you burned forever, eventually, yeah, you die, right? We're not doing it to that extreme, but you get what I'm saying. Like if you could do that, then you can apply that type of energy and that type of dedication to any goal you have in life. And I think that contest prep trains people for life. It's not just that contest prep trains you to have abs, you know, it trains you to be a better human, to be better at anything that you do. And that's why I like contest prep so much. And I think honestly, that's why I'm successful, because to me, working this hard every day that I work, and I was funny because I'll get coaches that tell me, oh, I want to be you one day. I want to be you one day. And I'm like, no, you don't. Like you don't even know what it would. Yeah. Why don't you work with me for a week and then put in 80 hours and then be smiling and be happy that you're doing it after 20 years and then tell me if you still want to be me, right? No one, like, it's very rare, but I love it. So it's not like work to me. I don't even think about it. It's just like, I just do it. Yeah. And so as long as you, but I think what happened was when I was younger, I was so dedicated to fitness that this is just normal for me to be this dedicated to just another aspect of fitness, which is coaching now. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's just, I'm so trained by competing. And I hope that all of you who are listening to do the same, take the same actions. Don't just do a contest just to get through it. Do it to learn, to make yourself better, to get to the next stage of your life. Yeah, when you're 50 years old, you might not be competing anymore. You might be past your prime at that point. But if you dedicate yourself this whole time to multiple goals and to maybe even pursuing something in fitness, which I'll tell you, if you are thinking about pursuing something in fitness, do it, because it's awesome. Every day is awesome. And if this is your actual job, there's so many avenues too. It is awesome, an awesome life. So anyway, I guess with that,
I'd also add, be grateful for the little things, okay?
Yeah.
Be grateful, be appreciative. You got to appreciate the little things. Even, let's say we're applying this to prep, like, be happy that you have the opportunity to prep and compete. And on show day, maybe not be so obsessed with like a number, but rather you've accomplished a goal. You stepped on stage, which is more than most people can say. You look better than 99% of the population. And you're very privileged for the fact that you can restrict calories. And, some people don't even have that privilege to do that. And they want to eat food because they don't know when they're going to get it next. So, I hate comparing like people's lives to other people's lives, but you can find like gratitude in the little things. Just take a moment to like appreciate, like, I'm lucky to have this. I'm lucky to be in this situation, or whatever the case may be. So,
Yeah. So
don't complain.
We're both lucky. High five on that. And you know what? One thing I'm going to say about luck is you create your own luck. Everyone could say, yeah, you're lucky or whatever, which I just said. But the reality is we created our own luck. We worked so hard that it looks more like we're lucky than we actually are, right? Because we earned the luck. You're going to earn your luck, guys. So work hard enough to do it. If you're at home all day and you're just on Instagram, or, one of the guys playing games all the time or whatever, like, yeah, you're not going to be, in 10 years, you're not going to be where you want to be. It's just the facts. Work every day like you want that goal in 10 years. Absolutely. So anyway.
So I think we have time for 2 more questions, one more from you and one from me, and then we'll kind of finish it off. And so if you want to go ahead and let us know.
Let's go. So, all right, let's go for one more. Actually, do you have yours ready?
Yes, I have mine ready. Okay. I just need to answer this one for sure on this episode, because I love this question. It's a great question. I'm surprised more people don't ask this question. But Jay asks, can you tell the differences and styles of every head judge you've ever been in front of? Yes, especially in bikini, right? Because bikini is the most subjective division out of them all. So with being a subjective division, there comes room for opinions and preferences. And, like I mentioned in former podcasts, in bodybuilding, it's a lot more clear cut. The biggest, the leanest, the most symmetrical guy wins, whatever. There's so many little factors in bikini that could go either which way, because there's a lot more opinions involved with it, such as how lean is too lean, how soft is too soft, how flamboyant is somebody's presentation, or do they not like that? Do they like a more basic presentation? Do they prefer blondes? Do they prefer brunettes? That doesn't matter in bodybuilding, okay? They don't care if you're they don't care if you're blonde, they don't care if you're brunette, but it's the whole package of bikini, and that comes with opinions. So I've had basically relatively the same physique, 2 different weeks, went 2 different ways because 2 different head judges, and they told me totally different things. Okay. So yes, definitely. There are definitely differences in head judges in bikini.
There is, and it's unfortunate that there is, but there is. Yeah, so for the most part, I would say the upper tier ones are a little bit more consistent, but if you're like at a local level and even sometimes at a national level, they're going to be pretty varying degrees of opinions. So but here we go. One more is, I just had it here. Oh, how do you pick your first competition? I think that one is more of a local, like more regionalized way to answer that. So here's the thing. There's 2 different ways of going about this. I tend to have like a first-time competitor go into a smaller show and kind of work them up into bigger shows. That's kind of like always been my model, is like, if I know the local area, if I know the regional area, like what shows typically aren't the biggest. And I'll usually kind of, because it's easier to do a show that's like, 100 people versus like 400 people, where it's like very intimidating. And the factor of them being comfortable on stage and whatnot. So I try to take that into consideration with someone's like first show. So I've tried to just kind of tier them up based on that, but you're going to have to know your local market to do that. I do train people like all over the world, so it's hard for me to kind of figure that out these days. But like if I'm now I'm in Vegas, and so, I'm getting a good understanding of those shows, of which ones are crazy and which ones are kind of okay in terms of volume. And so based on, if you're a transformation client and you just want to get on stage one time, why would I put you in the hardest show in America, right? The first time, if you're just trying to have fun with it. Let's put you in a smaller show. Let's make the day a little easier, that type of thing. Now, if you're trying to be Miss Olympia from day one, right? And you're like, I want to be the best, I want to compete against the best, then find the hardest show and go after it, And then from there, just go right into nationals and push yourself, So I would say that's kind of like the thought process of it. But yeah, generally I'll tier people up and work them into the bigger shows, because if you throw a first timer into a national show against a girl who's done 10 shows, like she's going to win on presentation alone, so that's a factor. So yeah, that's how I kind of do it.
Good answer right there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in to the Bikini and the Brain podcast. Make sure to stay tuned every Thursday or Friday. We're going to drop a new episode, except for that one time. Okay. But we'll make it up to you. I promise. But we appreciate every single one of our listeners. You guys are awesome. You make this so much more fun for us.
Yeah. It's fun to have something like this to do every week. And then we get to know each other better too.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is really cool.
So you can check out other social medias for more information too.
Yep.
Like your YouTube channel, Team Elite Physique, and then mine, Ashley Kaltwasser. I'm doing a Road to Olympia series on my channel, so you can get a sneak peek into the peak week.
Yeah. Do you have does it go youtube.com/Ashley K Fit or no?
I think it's Ashley Kaltwasser, which probably didn't think that one through. Should have been Ashley K Fit, because Kaltwasser with a K, right? It's just very hard to remember how to spell. But I'm sure if you start typing in Ashley
if you type in Ashley K, you'll find it. And
might be able to find me.
Mine's /Team Elite Physique, I think, on everything. So so thought it through.
Yeah.
All right, guys. You have a good week. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.